Hi, my name is Hananya Hoffinger, and I'd like to welcome you to Gemara Academy. In this presentation, there are two parts. Number one, you will see the new design, branding, and logo of Gemara Academy. And number two, and more importantly, you'll see all the new features that have been implemented in Gemara Academy over the past few months. So here we start with the first slide. We see the logo and name Gemara Academy, as well as the donor of this curriculum. On the next slide, we see the Masechta and Perek that are being learned, and then we move to the slide that's actually starting the class itself. This slide indicates the Masechta as well as Daf and Amud of this class, but more importantly, on the bottom, we have a menu. And in this menu, we have four different options. We have the class outline, the preparatory class, the flowchart class, and the text class. And so these are the four parts of this class that the student or teacher could use. Now, before we move on through each of these parts, we'll just mention that Gemara Academy can be used both by teachers as well as by students. Students can be the actual student in the class, a parent, or anybody that wants to learn Gemara. The way it's used in these two different manners, and the reason it's divided in these two, is because Gemara Academy comes both without audio, and this way the teacher uses it as a tool to present the Gemara, as we'll see, and it also comes with an audio. So throughout the whole class, the student will actually have an audio explaining and teaching him everything that he sees on the slides. So we're going to be using now the feature that doesn't have audio, and I will describe all the different parts of this slide. So we start with the first one, which is a class outline. Now a student can actually click on the words class outline and get there, and then click back to the menu, and a teacher could simply press next on the keyboard or with the clicker and it'll go there. And so this can be done throughout the presentation. I'm going to be using it as a student. I'm going to click to go through it. So we begin with the class outline. Now the class outline itself has a number of features. Number one, it simply shows the student which section of Gemara is going to be learned in that class. So we have over here the section of Gemara that's being learned. Number two, it now divides this section into the parts that it consists of. So it breaks it down and defines each section. So we have an answer, a tashma, then we have an explanation of how this is an answer. Then the Gemara rejects this tashma. The Gemara then leads into a challenge on this rejection. And ultimately the Gemara answers the challenge, and therefore the rejection stands. So it breaks down the Gemara, it shows them the section, and it breaks it down for them and defines each of the parts. The next part is that here we provide also the keywords in the Gemara. And when we say keywords, there are generally over here two types. Number one, those that reflect a change in the discussion. This is now an answer, tashma, or a question, veraminu, as well as keywords in the sense that the student is not familiar with these words. So in our Gemara over here, we have tashma as a keyword, and as we go through, we'll see how these words appear in a box in that text itself. My love, loi, ihachi, adatani seifa, bamed dvar mamurim, and finally the last one is hachinami. And as we can see also that the beginning of each change in color almost all the time has a keyword, tashma, my love, loi, ihachi, hachinami. So here this could help the student in being able to identify and notice the change in the discussion from a tashma to a explanation, my love, is it not? Here the Gemara is presenting logic, to the Gemara responding loi, no, to the Gemara saying ihachi, I have an issue with that, and the Gemara saying hachinami, I agree. So the student could then start noticing that the change from a question to an answer, or to a proof, to a teaching, has a word that very often indicates it. The next thing that the class outline has is that each of these words are now explained. What is tashma? What is my love? Each of them are explained. And for the student, he'll actually have an audio accompanying it, as well as the student has the ability of taking the mouse and clicking on any one that he's interested in seeing and going back to. The next section, we'll go to the menu for it, is the preparatory information. This is basically, now that the student knows the section, how it's divided, before we actually going to learn the Gemara or teach the Gemara, there are certain concepts, ideas, background information that the student needs to know. So in this case, what's presented here is number one, Baishas, the source for it in the Torah, as well as something from Chazal regarding Baishas. Number two, there's a brisa the Gemara is going to mention. So instead of the brisa being mentioned as if the student knows it already, and then he gets distracted, and then we get preoccupied with the brisa and potentially forget the way it comes into the Gemara and the role it plays, since it becomes so prominent, so that it should play the correct role in the Gemara. The brisa is presented and taught beforehand. This way the student already knows it, and he could look at it and focus on what's relevant for our Gemara. And number three, this is something in Gemara logic, what's liflig v'lisne b'dida. And over here you may have what's a gzera shava, what's a tzada shava, what's a binyan av, what's a hekesh, as well as what is good achas mechitza, what's a maitze mechavere olavaraya, what is the background for Hashavas Aveda, and so on and so forth. Now that the preparatory part is in place, the student can now go to the actual class itself, and this is going to be the flowchart class. So it's going to be the Gemara, but still outside somewhat. So the first part is the flowchart class. The flowchart class itself is divided into 3 parts. Number 1, we simply have an outline which consists of what the student learned and what he's going to learn. The value of this is 2 things. Number 1, the student sees where he came from and where he's going. Number 2, the student can know what he's going to expect in that class. There'll be a question and 2 answers. This is going to be asked and this will be answered. So it's still somewhat removed from the actual class itself, but he's getting closer to it in a sense that we learned this. The Gemara is going to challenge that teaching and provide 3 answers, whatever it may be in that class. The next section is the actual flowchart itself in English. As you can see here on the top corner, it's an A. The Aleph is still prominent because it's not been clicked. We'll see what happens when we click on it afterwards. Here it's an A. Everything over here will be in English. And the way it's arranged is that over here in the top section, we have what it is that we learned already, and now the discussion flows from it. So here we started off with a tashma, we brought a proof, we explained the proof, that's why it's pointing upwards. Then the Gemara rejected the proof. The Gemara then presented information that led into a challenge, and ultimately the Gemara answered this challenge, and therefore the rejection does stand. So here we have the entire Gemara presented in the flowchart. At times the flowchart will look very different. We may have a question and 3 different answers, and then one answer has a proof to it, or then one answer has a question on it. In this instance, it's a linear flowchart. The teacher could press next, and the student could press Aleph to now have the flowchart. This time it's going to be with the Gemara words and an exact translation of the Gemara words. So let's just see the first one. Tashma, come in here. Vikatsaisa is kappa, and you shall cut her hand. This is a quote from a pasuk. Mamin, it means money. So here we see that every single word of the Gemara is included in the flowchart, put in the appropriate box, as it was in the previous one, all in English, and with the exact translation. My lav, is it not? And it goes through the entire Gemara this way. Another feature that we see over here is the identifying marker. Just like in the previous flowchart, we had question and answer to identify what it was. Also here we have kushya, tirutz, pircha, because it's a type of kushya on it. And we also will have a shaila and a tshuva, a inquiry and a response. Let's go to the previous one. Here we had an answer, a rejection, and a challenge. We may have had an inquiry and a response. And now we move to the 4th and final part, which is really what everything is supposed to lead up to. Now the student is prepared for the text class. And the text class basically provides them here with the text, with the highlighting, like in the first slide, and it goes through it. Another feature we have over here, which is completely new, is the Gemara with Nekudas. So that's something which can be extremely helpful and useful to students. Now, the student has an option. Here it's going to come automatically, but he has an option. Does he want to click on those words? Right here, he would click on it, and then it would bring up Tashma, come in here, or does he not want to click on it? So this way, the first time through it, he may click on it to bring up the words, especially if it's Rosh Tevis, as well as the translation, and the second time around, he may just want to click through it. But as we go through it here, we can see, here it comes up automatically. Everything is brought up on the side, the words and the translation, until the student comes through to the final one. We didn't put them all in. You can see over here it's made with the previous feature that you click on it. So it goes through. Let's just show it again. The student clicks on it until we get to the last slide of the presentation where everything is highlighted. And so this is a brief summary of all the new features, aspects, and additional things that have been implemented in Gemara Academy.